Alright guys, HyDra here again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Dashy responding to the Kenny PC drama over the last few days, revealing that yes, as far as he is concerned, that PC had serious issues even long before Kenny was removed off the OpTic lineup or left, depending on your perspective. The reality is though that there are serious issues with the PCs in the CDL right now. Scrappy has called them out a while ago as well, and maybe conversations really need to be had as to how it got to this point and whether things could have been seriously different for OpTic. Now it's not just JP and Karma and Kenny talking about it, Dashy is also confirming the stories too. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Some crash out on the day yesterday as well. I do want to start here though with the KD leaders of the qualifiers so far. Now, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like, OpTic played one series, but I mean, at the start of the season, Huke and Shotzzy were like the number 1, number 2 rated players in the world, right? I mean, Huke's KD for some time was actually really, really good, as was Shotzy's. And they're back to number 1, number 2. Dashy and Skyz are number 5, number 6, would you believe? Look, it's one series, so, you know, let's see how it goes. Cellium's here at a 1.3, but he had a 1.95 in the most recent series. Super's at a 1.3 as well. Super's numbers this season are really, really impressive. Certainly his search and destroy. His search this season, he's averaging a 1.48 in search, 1.5 in search since he's come in. So, and his online's definitely been better than LAN. That's a talking point for sure. But still impressive what he's accomplished as of late. CleanX at 7, Geo at 8, despite, of course, a tricky start for them. But the big drama yesterday was around the challenger side. I mean, the flanks spent about 50 minutes or so talking about it. I just wanted to run through some of the reaction really to what they had to say, because it all kind of came from the fact that ZooMaa's got a team together again. Obviously, Encourage is now retired. He'll be back, who knows. We'll see some discussion on that too in a second. And unfortunately, his challengers team was not really able to scrim because his guys are, you know, they're trying to work, they're trying to go to school, they're trying to do other things during the day. Whereas the challengers teams, you know, they like to have this schedule where they scrim at certain hours of the day. And like, it seems probably a bit too far for challengers, especially when most of these guys are making zero bread. So ZooMaa crashes out on it and says, look, these guys aren't going to see a future. We're just going to see the same names again and again. You know, what are they playing at, right? Obviously talk about the collegiate Call of Duty system as well. Bit of drama too, because of course Envoy yesterday, well, they lost, but also they lost a couple of days ago. Envoy had a 0.8. Look, I think some of these numbers are a bit cherry-picked. Like, Envoy did well to keep them in the series at times, and, you know, I think Envoy's just a phenomenal player, right, that gets disrespected, I think, a lot of the times by the community personally, but in terms of, like, the ability that he has. But this guy, Omit Rayla, says, no talent in challenges, worst KD in the lobby. So, obviously, just to quickly clarify again, Envoy did make the statement about how, it's, in his opinion, there is not enough talent to justify league expansion. He wasn't necessarily saying that there's not enough talent in challenges on an individual, you know, if you cherry pick the best players, maybe there is enough talent in challenges. That might have been Envoy's perception, but maybe not 16 players. Although I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that. I think certainly around the world, you know, there's some great players in Europe, there's plenty of great players in America. I think you could justify it personally, but of course Envoy had his take on it. And I also get it, as a league player, you're going to get, you know, you're a CDL pro, is how it is, right? You start to think differently about players that aren't CDL pros, right? It is what it is. Anyway, Envoy says, cherry picking a couple of online series is good rage bait. Few bad series for me and us, but glad the rookie as old as me could finally carry his team after getting annihilated 5 series beforehand. Work more on your analytics. Top 16 ain't cutting it for the best organ challenges, he says. So I thought that was pretty entertaining. Look, I'm here for the drama at the end of the day. I don't really pick sides. We do know that Encourage recently called it a day, right? Stepped away from challenges. Whether he'll be back, who knows? Like, he's only young, potentially still got a future ahead of him. I just, you know, it reminds me a little bit of, there's a guy called Jake. He's not a COD player, but he's a Valorant player. And he was on the Cloud9 team briefly, and then he was not on the Cloud9 team anymore. And he basically said, yeah, you know what, I've had enough of this. He was a really young guy. I'm going to call it a day. Like, I'm not seeing, you know, the results that I want to see. And there were lots of people in the replies to him saying, look, you're a talented player, you potentially got a future ahead of you if you stick it out. And he retired for a bit, and then a couple of months later he came back, and, you know, he's made it work for himself, I think. He's done some collegiate stuff as well. So I think there's some things to encourage to consider when you're a talented player. There's always options out there, but yeah, I definitely think Encourage is probably wise not to really of going along, let's say, with what's currently happening in challenges, which is effectively you scrim all day to make no money and do nothing else, which is what most of the players do. Nameless had his thoughts on Encourage and said that his mental was super weak. We used to sleep on floors in hotels, riding on Greyhound buses, paying for $200, and, you know, sleeping on hotel floors of other fans and players, or like whatever you could take, basically trading GB credits for food. The stories back in the day were sensational. So Nameless says, look, wise up, sunshine, basically. And ZooMaa had his thoughts as well. This was kind of the big statement though, right? Because Cruz talks about the Challengers scrim schedule, what's going on here. Cruz says how people don't look at this climate of challenges and non-existent paths to pro and think they should have a backup, because maybe 0.1% of competitors will ever sniff the league and 50% of them get dropped within a few months. Now more than ever, we need to have a schedule that actually works with study or work. CDL is killing COD and we're heaping on the pile. I think this is kind of the key point to me, right? Is that, you know, we talk as much about challenges and the way that the CDL is mishandling things, and that's not necessarily not true, but a lot of the time the Challengers players don't necessarily help themselves. Nameless says, does the schedule not work? And Cruz says, look, the scrim schedule has been 2 p.m, 4:30 p.m, 7 p.m. Eastern. If you live on the West Coast, you're starting scrims at 11. Personally, I'm able to juggle both because of my classes are in the mornings, but and luckily my teammates are accommodating, but I miss the 2 Wednesdays and Fridays because I've got lectures, right? So, you know, this is what it is in challenges. This is how it is. And Nameless says, I'm baffled that this is an issue. Until Infinite Warfare, so 2017 we're talking, players were still balancing school and competing, and that's pro players with more matches and events. I was still in school way back mid-BO3 on a pro schedule. Scrim start at 6 and 7, play 2 sets, and then you're done. You know, that's how they used to do it, right? They would scrim late night, so they could, and look, it wasn't ideal maybe, but that's how it used to be. So people would go to work in the day, and if that was, look, nowadays obviously it's very understandable why the pro teams no longer do that, right? Because this is a full-time job. But back in the day, that was not necessarily a thing, and they used to scrim late night. Not late night, but, you know, they would start at 6 or 7, so anyone could play or do whatever they wanted during the day. If you were gunless, you would just grind COD all day and then scrim. And if you were other people, maybe you would do other things during the day, you know, work, study, whatever you could do to keep an option open on the table when there wasn't big money on the line back then, of course. And yes, as Nameless kind of goes on to say that nowadays, the prize pool in challenges is bigger than the pro prize pool was back in the day. So, you know, look, obviously Nameless, he works for the league, so he's not necessarily going to come out and criticize the league and the way that they're handling things, but he does make an interesting point to say, look, nowadays there's more money in challenges than there ever was in the pro scene back in the day, and yet back then, you know, the pros had the mental, right, that Nameless is talking about. I was in school making a little cash from video games and felt like I was balling off online tournaments. Instead of a job, I got to game, sure, but maybe something would come from it. The problem is a lot of you view it instantly as a career path before accomplishing anything. It's a damn hobby and dream until it becomes realistic. Be responsible. I'm not trying to dunk on you guys. My DMs are open if you want to talk to me, you know, and basically get some advice. Good luck. It's a journey, but it's worth it. So I think pretty bang on from Nameless, really. Could Tier 2 be handled better by the league? Absolutely. I don't think anyone's really denying that. But he makes an interesting point that the prize pools and challenges, I mean, you can win events and win like, what, 75k is the prize pool for some of these tournaments, something in that kind of ballpark anyway. So, you know, you can make money doing it. But also, back in the day, people would have other options, and maybe the Challengers players, all they'd have to say is that, okay, look, we're going to scrim later in the day, and then it gives opportunities for players to actually do something else before it becomes a proper career path, I suppose. So anyway, that's the kind of comments on that for the day. And let's talk about some of the other drama that was happening. We did have an 8 series. So Drazah, Xnid, Pred and Skyz on one team, aBeZy, JoeDeceives, Huke and Reese. I imagine Reese Vivid on the other side of it. So interesting to see Vivid still around, if that's what was happening there. But the big drama really was around this whole PC debate over the last few days. So Kenny was dropped/left OpTic. I don't think it really matters. People love to kind of differentiate here and say, oh no, well, Kenny actually left, which is what Hex said, that he decided to kind of step down rather than continue, which, look, I get it. I don't think the wording massively matters. Like, I think Kenny was going to go. It was probably a matter of jump before you get pushed, in my opinion. And in hindsight, should Kenny have gone? Look, time will tell. I do think that losing Kenny was a loss, but also losing his 0.7s was a gain on paper, right? But Skyz has come in and, until the most recent series, not exactly performed all that much better. And look, Kenny's gone to a new team and he's playing better. So why is that? Not like his new team is winning anything. They're not really. They're not really much better than they were with Paul. But Kenny on an individual level is definitely playing better cards. And, well, it's helping his case anyway that something was going on at OpTic. Either the team dynamics were just not good for setting up any fourth player in that system, which maybe could still be argued with the Skyz situation right now, or the other alternative is there were certain PC issues that were holding him back. So it was revealed the other day by JP, by Karma, that the PC, so these PCs are league supplied. It's not like OpTic can go out there and say, oh, we'll just buy you a new PC, Ken. It doesn't really work like that. Like, these are the league PCs. They're set up by the league. They're optimized, apparently they're optimized by the league. I think it's a lot of the old Alienware stuff. And they've been around for years, these PCs. They're not great. I mentioned the other day the story that Riot Games were finally pressured into upgrading their equipment. Maybe the CDL will be at some point as well. Maybe Activision don't want to put the money in, right? It is what it is. That certainly is true, that last part anyway. It's a matter of when or where this debate can potentially be had again if there's more money on the table. But Kenny's PC that briefly became Skyz's when Skyz joins, and now I think they're using another one, or they had a backup or something like that anyway. Maybe the league supplied them with a new one, I'm not exactly sure. But that PC had issues. They mentioned how the SSD had failed, so that, you know, the solid state drive, the implications of that are somewhat unknown. Obviously, Dashy kind of gets his analysis wrong here. But he did say that even for some time, that PC was causing issues, and he was getting lag spikes that nobody else was getting in the league, certainly not on his team.
You need a PC?
Yeah, because that one broke.
What about the, wait, which one broke?
The one I was telling you about.
Dude,
so we only have the 5 now.
The Ken Caesar one had a SSD failure.
I can't believe that they haven't updated the PCs in 4 fucking years.
4 or 5? One of the two.
It's 8?
Yeah, they're from the Overwatch League.
Are they really?
Yeah, 2018.
Is it true Ken used a 7-year-old PC? I have no idea. The PC definitely has problems though. This shit was definitely fucking up. I don't know if he was using it. He might have been using the same one from like even MW3 because like some of the lags that he was getting, like I don't think anybody else was getting. And that SSD failure, see, I don't know shit about PC, so I don't fucking know, dude. I can't lie. That doesn't sound good though. SSD? I feel like that's like, is that the core? Is that the core of the PC?
So in hindsight, this is very interesting, right? And who knows if it could be kind of telling. If Kenny's PC was fine all along, then would it have changed the tides of anything? Look, people are going to say, well, Kenny went to LAN and still got fried, which at times is kind of partially true. And obviously on LAN it was a different PC. So, and look, did the PC cause Kenny to YY 16 times in 13 seconds and die? No. And is he really doing that nowadays on Rocker? Certainly not as much. So, you know, I think that there was clearly more to it than just the PC thing. Kenny's confidence was clearly not where he wanted it to be. OpTic's confidence in him was clearly not where they wanted it to be. And I think eventually the decision probably had to be made. But still, you know, there is talk about the fact that if the PC was different, maybe things would have been different. And maybe Kenny's confidence would have been stronger. Maybe that would have improved their performance online or on LAN. But obviously on LAN it was a different PC anyway. So that is the question really of the day. The final question for you guys is, what about this map? So this is a map called Haven. There is a map actually called Haven in Valorant. It's, you know, one of the better ones, I would say. Is this as pretty as Haven? No. Like the Valorant version. Obviously, the maps are nowhere near the same at all. But Shotzzy's walking around and says, you know what, the layout of this isn't too bad. But he just hates the way that it looks, which probably doesn't really matter. It is a rectangular map, right? It's kind of 3-lane. It is kind of 3-lane. There's obviously been a bit of talk about it over the last couple of days whether Haven could be a viable option. Nameless thought it was pretty funny that he's like, yeah, we are not playing this. I kind of like how it's laid out, but I just don't like how it looks. So I don't think anything's going to change. The reality is, if it's not changed now, the map pool, it's never going to change, because are they going to change it between Major 4 qualifiers and the Major? No. Are they going to change it after the Major before Champs? No. Are they going to change it before EWC? Potentially. Maybe that's possible. So, but certainly for the next couple of months, we are not going to be seeing any new maps in the game. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.